Hi, Matt, an alcoholic.
Amen.
Hey, everybody. Well, Rex, thank you. That was really good. And, I just want to comment, a lot of your story I can really relate to. It's very relatable, and I appreciate you sharing that. And I love the part, the controlled drinking, because when I hear that, that tells me if I have to control something, then there must be a problem with it. Because I look at other people that drink normally, and they don't have a control issue. They're able just to have one or two drinks or a half a glass of wine. Like, can you imagine a half a glass, leave it sit on the table? I just can't even, I want to drink it, I don't now, but I just can't imagine that. Um, so I got my first drink when I was 11, and um, and I loved it. I hated the flavor. It was Old Milwaukee. I drank a half a beer. We were out running around in the woods. I could only drink a half a beer, but it made me feel good enough. They're like, Rex, that's what I wanted the rest of my life. And from then on, I looked for every single day a way to get out of my body. I didn't say I was a drug addict, but that is a big part of my story. But first and foremost, I am an alcoholic. That's what I would choose to have, but I was a blackout drinker. That's a big part of the story that I can really relate to from a very, very early age. I don't want to go too much into the drunken log. I'm going to share a little bit on it, but the bottom line is I just felt very miserable. I did not want to drink, and I did not want to live anymore. I don't know if I really can say that I had depression. I just know that my life was a mess at the time that I stopped, which was 31. So it was my first day sober was February 1st, 1992. And I remember going into the meetings, and prior to that, when I was 18, I got 2 DUIs in 1 week. And it was back in the days when I didn't hire an attorney. I defended myself. It was in 2 different counties. I'm a really good alcoholic. I really BS my way through. And I got off. I basically got off. And one of them was a .22. I mean, I was pretty drunk. All right. I was blacked out for most of that one. I can remember little parts of it that were kind of funny. But part of that is I had to do some, attend a couple of AA meetings, and I looked at the literature, and I looked at those scary 12 steps suggestions, okay, and I thought, just looking at the first or second, I can't do this. Well, no, actually, it's not even in the steps. What they said is you can never take another drink. So that right away blew it away. But then looking at the steps, I'm like, I can't do that stuff. Step 4, are you kidding me? Step 5, I got to tell somebody everything that's happened in my life. There's no way that that's going to happen. So, so for 14 years, I continued to use, and it just got worse until my wife. I had the same situation. My wife said, when the marriage is over, she didn't give me a choice. It was over. So, it was interesting because I wanted to know where that imaginary line was. And it's this one meeting that I was going to quite often. I got sober in South Florida in the Homestead group, but one of the groups I attended was called the South Dade group. The Homestead group was a really hardcore group. All right, they really, really pushed you hard. So, and back then I think I don't know how it is as much now, but back then different groups I've been to seem a little more flexible. But anyways, I wanted to know when I crossed that line. And one speaker got up and said, the first drink I had was 11, and that's when I was alcoholic. I'm like, I can relate to that. That's what happened to me. Went to another speaker meeting, and the person said, I was born an alcoholic. I came out of the womb an alcoholic. That's what I felt like, because even before I picked up the first drink, I was mentally defective. I had a lot of fear, and I had control issues. I can remember being a kid. If I don't get my way, I'm going to throw a temper tantrum with my friends or with whatever. So that's just my story, and that's the way I felt about it. And there's some things I'm going to say that, if you've been around a while, you've probably heard this. Don't do what I've done, because it could get you drunk. but I'm sharing it because I think it doesn't have to get you drunk. You can screw up. I've made a lot of mistakes in sobriety, and I did not go back out and drink. It's not an excuse to pick up a drink or something else that's going to make me feel better. So I really want to. I may go back a little bit back and forth on my drunken log, and I didn't plan anything. I'm just kind of winging it, whatever comes out of my mouth, and gonna look at the clock. But I like to talk about the solution, and so I want to share how I went through the steps. And I'm the type of person I like to do things once. I know some people like to do the steps every year, and that's fine. One thing that I do every year is I read the big book every year. I'm very much into the big book, so I've read it at least 30, 35 times in my sobriety. I'm not a big book thumper, but there's things that stick out in my head about the big book when I read it, especially in the beginning and the preambles, and they're talking about how it saved so many people and Bill's story. I actually start crying because I can really relate to what they're talking about. And it amazes me that that book was written in 1935, and it really still works today. Almost 100 years later, 90 years later, it still works. It's really fantastic. So, step one, admitting that we're powerless over alcohol and our lives have become unmanageable. And so when I was 18 and I looked at that step, I could not, I could actually say that, but I didn't accept it. I believed it, I knew it. I could stay sober for a certain amount of time, 6 months, maybe a year, but I just never accepted it. I never accepted that that's what I was. I never accepted that it's a disease. I don't have control over it. I was taught that it's just like having cancer. You get it, you get it. Okay. I mean, maybe it could be caused by smoking or something, but bottom line is if you get it, but there is a treatment. You can go treat yourself for cancer. And I found I could treat myself for alcoholism. And Alcoholics Anonymous has enabled me to do that. And I love that the big book says, hey, if you can find another way, go for it. We just want you to be sober. We'd like to be part of it, but we don't have to be. Okay. Second step is a little scary for a lot of people, having a higher power. And when I read it that way, that I can have a power greater than myself that restores me to sanity, first I had to look and say, well, I'm not insane. I've never lost a job. Yeah, I've lost my family. I've lost everything else, but I'm still, like you said, functional. That's great. That is an oxymoron. I like that. So I didn't feel insane until I learned what insanity means, doing the same thing over and over and expecting different results, and that they're not. But the best part of it was having a power that I want, whatever power that I want, because I was, I didn't have the problem with atheism. I was born into Christianity. I went to the Lutheran Church, but it never worked for me because I would go to church wasted or drunk or whatever, So obviously, I didn't believe in that, but having my own power that I could make up whatever I wanted was perfect. So that really helped me. And I was looking for my big book. I couldn't find it. I'm doing remodeling and I put it somewhere because I keep the principles, like there's a principle for every step. And I think the principle on that is hope, or at least that's what I got out of the second step was hope. And I remember I had like a vision when I was early sober, like it was in the first few weeks or month. And I just felt like I was resting in my Father's hand. And I'll call my higher power God or Jesus, Holy Spirit, or the universe. I use a lot of different names. It doesn't matter. It's just I know it's greater than me. And I just felt like I was resting in my Father's palm and I was completely protected. It didn't last long, but I'll never forget that feeling. And that gave me hope. And I knew that that's what I needed. Step 3, that was such a relief to surrender. I love surrendering. and, you know, and studying the big book. And I had a sponsor right away. When I got in, I was like, I was ready. I was completely ready to get sober. So um, Mike was my sponsor, and he was pretty hardcore. Um, and to do step three, I just couldn't imagine. It was kind of weird. Like we were both in construction, and I kind of envisioned us sitting in the AA parking lot at the back of our trucks on our knees doing the third step. And it's not how it went at all. And, you know, they say don't do it alone unless you really, really have to. And that was the case for me. And I did the third step in a short time, many different ways. But that was very important to me because when I did the third step, I did it by myself. I was feeling a great deal of pain. The obsession to drink hadn't left. I still had that obsession. Like, you know, it's just y'all, I know you can relate to what I'm saying. So I went out to the lake where I lived, and I just sat on the lake shore, and I just did the third step. I just said, you know, I turn my will and my life over to you, God. And I still do that every single day. I do the third step prayer. It's very important to me. And from that day on, the obsession has been removed. I'm not going to say I don't think about drinking, but it lasts for about 5 seconds and I start laughing. I can't have a drink. There's not enough booze in the bar. You know, I'm going to want to keep drinking. So it was really nice that obsession was taken away. And in talking about doing that third step prayer in the morning, that's something else that was taught to me from the Homestead group, was hitting your knees twice a day. First thing in the morning when I get up, all I have to do is have the willingness to say, please keep me sober. And before I go to bed at night, thank you for keeping me sober, having that gratitude. And I say a lot more than that now. My prayers have developed into a lot more than that, but that is the main thing that I need to do. And then, you know, and also before I go to step 4, going to meetings was huge. I don't go to a lot of meetings now. I have a completely different spiritual life now that I follow on a regular basis. But when I first got sober, and for the first 10 years, I was very, very involved with Alcoholics Anonymous. And, you know, they say do 90 and 90. I did probably double that because that's where I felt the best. I felt the most comfortable. And, you know, one of my favorite meetings was the candlelight meeting. I don't know if y'all have that or ever been to one. But if you go to a candlelight meeting, if they do it the way we did it, we turned all the lights out and you lit a candle on each table and it was dark and you felt like you could say anything. You could spill your guts. And one of the best things that, you know, that I remember was I was feeling so good. I was riding that pink cloud. I mean, I was up there in my early sobriety. And I remember saying to somebody, I just feel so good. I'm scared. And he looked at me, I'll never forget, his name was Larry, and he said, take it easy. You know, and that's one of our slogans, take it easy. And I still remember that, all these little things that helped me out. So anyway, so a little more on step 3. So I ended up doing that with a minister, and then I did do it with my sponsor. So that was really good. Step 4, I really had problems with step 4. I was trying to do it a lot of different ways. You know, my sponsor, you know, we read over it several times. I just didn't get it when I read it. And so I tried, you know, he gave me I guess there's like a little workbook or something you can try. There's different things you can read, and you can write a story about your life. And, you know, I really had issues doing it. And I think I probably took at least 6 months, maybe longer, to do step 4, even though I tried. Now, I will say, in my early sobriety and within that first year, I did parts of the steps that I needed to do at a particular time. Okay. So I didn't have to wait to get to step 9 to make amends to people. Okay. I'm not saying I went and made amends to everybody or I had a list, but maybe I needed to go say sorry to somebody for something that I did. So that was actually doing it, even though I really didn't know that I was doing it. So I was doing little parts of the steps as I was going through, becoming more spiritual, helping others in early sobriety. I hadn't worked all the steps, and I was helping other people. Okay. So on step 4, it's so funny how it just clicked in. I just looked at the big book. It's on one page, for crying out loud. Can't make it any more simple than that. You write 3 little columns. When I understood what I had to do, I got down to business and it was done in like a day or less. It was just done. I already knew all the stuff was in there. I don't know if it was fear. I don't know what it was. Um, and it was fantastic because it really relieved me. And, you know, I can't speak to how anybody else does it, but I can tell you my deepest, darkest secrets were in there. So now I had them. I didn't even want to look at them. Honestly, it's kind of like I blanked it out. I wrote them all down in a blackout, let's say a sober blackout. I wrote them all down. And then I didn't want to look at them because they were so friggin' scary. And I knew I was going to have to go talk to somebody about it. So I was going to have to do step 5. At the time, I was seeing a therapist. Okay, I was working through some issues. And, you know, I think, you know, whenever I've sponsored other people, if they come to me with an issue that I can't handle, maybe it's a financial issue or a legal issue or a mental issue, I am not an attorney, a psychotherapist, or an accountant. And I'll tell them, oh, I can't do your taxes. You might need to, you know, that's the best. So the best answer I can give them. So I'm really careful on that stuff. So I was seeing a psychologist. I thought, oh, this is Big Book says I can do this. You can go to your minister. I thought, well, I can go to her and share it. So, you know, I shared it with her. I got absolutely nothing out of it. I shared everything with her. And it wasn't her fault. It wasn't anything that she did. I had parts of it that I really was struggling with. And I had recently moved in with a partner. And I said, well, I want to share part of this with you. And when I did, he was also an alcoholic. I met him in AA. And when I shared that with him, he said some very important things. He said, I've done some of those things. There's nothing wrong with you. And you're still worthy and deserving. And that was key because he understood what I went through. After that, I went and talked to my sponsor. I said, okay, I'm ready to do it. And we did everything. And you know, the Big Book talks about, you know, your whole mind is just opened up and it's breezes blowing through, and that you go to this spiritual level. And, you know, quite frankly, I went to that spiritual level. It just felt fantastic. And he said, okay, I was still working with Mike at the time. He said, okay, go home and read the Big Book. It's pretty simple. You do step 5, you do 6 and 7 and 8. I did it all. I did 5, 6, 7, and 8 all in an afternoon. You know, it's very simple. You know, I admitted to God, to myself, and to another human being, everything that I did wrong. What kind of humility is that? To be able to say all of that stuff, all your deepest, darkest secrets. Obviously, I was ready to have it taken, get rid of, you know, and in my morning prayers, I still do that. I still ask God to take away my character defects. You know, that's step 7. So I was willing in 6. Step 7, I said, take them away. I'm done. I sat on the couch. I went through my list. Did I do this thoroughly? Yes, I did. Okay, I'm ready to, I'm willing to get rid of it. I got off the couch. I got on my knees and said, take it away. And I had the list. I had step 8 in front of me. All I had to do was maybe put some extra names on there on who it affected. One of the people that was affected was myself. I actually, by doing step 5, 6, and 7, and 8, I actually did step 9 for myself. I had actually made that amend to myself because I think it's important. You know, I have to forgive myself, because if I don't, I'm never going to feel worthy. I'm always going to feel guilty. I'm always going to feel shame. And I don't want to feel that personally. Step 9 was just, uh, it was really scary. But for those of you that have done it, to go face your ex-wife and say, yeah, I was abusive and I took money and used it for things I shouldn't have. And I wasn't there for you. I wasn't there for the children. And I'm really sorry. And I want to do whatever I can to make it up to you. And she'd seen me working through this process. She'd seen me getting sober. My kids went to meetings with me. They were 6 and 11 when we separated. So they used to go to AA with me. And they're 37 and 45 now. So it's pretty cool. And but she just looked at me and was like, it's okay. It's okay. And just today we still have a relationship. I went to her wedding with her new husband many years ago. I actually went to the rehearsal dinner because that's how close we are. We're actually family. I still talk to her. I still try and see her at least every year, her and her husband. We're family. And we were together for 10 years. That's why we're family. And we went through a lot of things together. So, and I want to kind of reverse that step 9. So, because I had that experience reversed, where another alcoholic was doing this for me. So when I was in high school, me and this girl fell in love. Her name was Myrna, and she was like the love of my life. And I'm getting a little off track, but you'll understand why. So she had a boyfriend, but her and I were still having this love affair on the side. And then I moved to Florida from Virginia. And then she said, I'll move down there with you. I said, okay, well, I'll buy you a one-way ticket. And this is in 1979. So it's not like you got cell phones or anything. So I bought her a one-way ticket. I went to the airport and I waited and she never showed up. Okay. I guess that's getting ghosted is what we call that today. I don't think we had a term for her back then. Never heard from her again. Okay. It's been not quite 10 years. It's been 7 or 8 years. I got invited to a very good friend of mine's surprise party. Her name was Carol. So her daughter actually invited me up. So I went up. She didn't know I was coming, and it was like really good. That was back in Virginia. Myrna shows up at the party. It's, and we weren't really trying to avoid each other, but there was a lot of people at this party. So then finally she comes up to me, and God, she looked the same. It was like unbelievable. Okay. She was from Guatemala, and I mean, it was unbelievable. And she says, I need to talk to you. I've been in recovery for 25 years, and I need to make a step 9 amends to you. And I just started laughing and hugged her because I'm like, hey, I've been in recovery for like, over 20 years. I know she had like a year or two more than me. And it was really fantastic. So it was, yeah, you could really see her face light up and how it reversed. And I understood, and there were no hard feelings. It was just really a beautiful thing. So moving on to step 10, continue to take personal inventory, and when we're wrong, promptly admitted it. That's something that we do every day, or at least I try to do every day. And I think the biggest thing I learned out of step 10 is don't put myself in a situation where I have to do that, where I don't make mistakes. I'm not perfect. I'm going to make mistakes, but I'm sober for a while now, and I don't want to use step 10 as a crutch to make an excuse. Oh, I can go hurt somebody. I can cut somebody off in traffic, or I can do this or that. I'm not saying I don't do it, because I still do. All right. And I have to look at that and ask, why did I do it? And I did it out of fear. Everything is out of fear. I learned a lot of good things in the different rooms that I've been in, different meetings. And one guy, um, his phrase was, "There's only two things. There's only the only problem is the two fears. There's only two fears: the fear that I'm going to lose what I already have, or I'm not going to get what I want." And that's the two fears, and it's only 11 fears, so that's it. Um, what was the other thing he said? Mine is a disease of perception. It talks about perception in the third step, and so that's something that I really have to work on. So step 11, through prayer and meditation. You know, I really suck at meditating. However, for me, step 11 is about being God conscious, being higher power conscious. And I can honestly say that every day in my life, and I try to do it every second. I know I don't do it every second. If I can at least do it every minute, every few minutes, or every 15 minutes, I try to stay in contact with my higher power and let my higher power guide me to whatever I'm supposed to do. I don't know what that is. And what's really nice is after all this practice and reading the big book over and over and meeting so many different people and hearing stories like Rex, I know that I don't have to worry about it. If there's a decision I need to make and I start worrying about it, I go, oh, I don't have to worry about it. Holy Spirit, you got that. Or I surrender, you got it. I remember one time I surrendered, I wanted to move to Seattle. I lived in Florida and it was 2016. I wanted to move here in 2017. I didn't have my finances in order. So I came, I checked it all out. Okay, this was in April. I'm gonna come in 2017. And Holy Spirit's, no, you got to go now. You got to. We fought over this. I finally said, screw it, you make it happen. I was here in July of 2016 with the job. They paid for my travel. I was like, how did that happen? It was just like amazing. Once I surrendered and was willing, it happened. So, step 12, helping other people. That's really important. Excuse me. There's so many different ways to help other people. There's so many different types of prayer. I've learned prayer in action, walking down the street, smiling at somebody, getting on an elevator, saying hello, just being really positive, talking to the clerk. I always try to practice, looking at their name and addressing people by their name. Even at Home Depot, it's written on their mock they're wearing. There's so many different ways that I can help others, whether it's in AA, being a sponsor, or just out on the street. And I know that when I'm helping them, when I smile at somebody and say hello and use their name, it makes me feel really good because I get to see the smile on their face. And that makes me feel good. That makes me feel positive. Well, we got like another minute or so left. I pretty much went through this. I will just say, so, what it was like, it was horrible. What happened was I was either going to die or I was going to get sober. Felt like the choice that I had. That's how low that I felt. And ever since I got sober, the way it is now and the way it's been since I got sober has been fantastic. There's a lot of different spiritual work that I do and I've gotten involved with so many different people. I have a fantastic life. I started doing yoga 2 years ago. I met this guy in India. We do it on Zoom. And this morning we were talking about how life is a dream. And he was saying, because I said, I just know you 2 years, and he ended up meeting somebody in Italy, and he's moved there with a new wife, and I was there, and I met my partner there, and he's got here. So like in 2 years, all this stuff has happened in our lives, and he goes, yeah, it's like a dream. I go, yes, it's a happy dream, and I really do, and I wouldn't have it if I didn't have, my sobriety, and I can lose it in a heartbeat. And I'm so glad that you shared that, Rex, because that's a reminder for me. So thanks. And that's it. Thank you.